All right, so what I want to talk to you guys about today is the fat loss bank account and working with your caloric budget. Fat loss is not magic. It's not about detoxes, your mystery hormones that are acting up, all this kind of stuff, or the secret food list that's going to suddenly get you lean, right? It boils down to math. It's simply what it boils down to. And your body handles energy the same way that your bank account handles money. So every day you're either depositing calories through eating food, right? Or spending them through movement training, basic metabolic function, just staying alive, breathing, digesting, thinking, me talking to you guys, right? If you consistently deposit more food than you can burn, you're going to gain fat. If you consistently burn more food than you deposit, you lose fat, right? It's pretty simple. If you're even, you maintain it, right? Now, that's the foundation of energy balance. Notice I did not say calories in, calories out. It's energy balance. I think there's a lot more, as you guys know, that goes into it than calories in, calories out. It's about energy balance. So that's why fat loss always comes down to pretty much just being able to balance the checkbook, balance that metabolic budget, I guess is the best way to put that. So if we look at the calorie equation simplified in its easiest manner, um, we're going to break that down into what your caloric budget is. So calories in, we're going to call those deposits, right? So this includes everything from food, drinks, sauces or condiments, and even like, a weekend events, and we'll get a little more into that as well too. Your total daily intake is your deposits into your energy account, essentially. So now if we look at the calories out or the withdrawals part, we have four basic things. We have your BMR, which is your basal metabolic rate. This is your baseline, right? This is what your body needs to function at rest. If you lay in bed all day long, you don't move, you don't do nothing. This is your BMR. This is what your body just needs to survive, essentially, at its very lowest state of rest. If you wake up, don't move a muscle, lay in bed all day until it's time to go to sleep, that's your BMR. If you want to break it down into the easiest way to explain that, right? Um, think of this as like rent. It's due every single day, no matter what. Even though the rent is due at the end of the month or the first of the month, whatever the case may be, every single day you're quote unquote paying something to go toward that rent at the first of the end of the month, right? Essentially, it's there whether you want it to be or not. Then we look at our NEAT, which is our non-exercise activity thermogenesis. This involves getting steps in from walking, fidgeting, doing chores, me snapping my fingers, me, shaking my leg when I'm sitting here at the desk. All this stuff adds up pretty fast. It's one of the most overlooked. If you've ever been in a pretty steep caloric deficit, you'll notice that when you have a lot of food in, you fidget around a lot. I shake my leg a lot just out of habit, right? But when I'm in a very deep caloric deficit, that stuff goes away. I don't do that. That's my body trying to reserve energy, right? Because again, it's the most overlooked, but all that stuff does add up over time. Now we have the TEF, the thermic effect of food. So digestion burns calories, right? I mean, if you intake food, it doesn't just automatically get boiled and processed in your stomach acid and it gets used, right? It takes energy to break that down. And protein requires the most energy to break down as compared to, carbs and fat. So take a scoop of protein and a piece of whole chicken, for example, right? The body has to work harder to break down those pieces of whole, food, whole pieces of chicken, right? As opposed to a powdered like protein substance that's already broken down into a very ultra broken down form, right? That's kind of why, just kind of a little bit of a tidbit. If you're in a very low calorie budget, get rid of the protein powders, have wholesome food. It's for one going to keep you fuller for longer, and then number two is going to take more calories to burn that wholesome food. So even though it may be a very small amount, I don't even like 5, 10, 20, whatever extra calories, right? Day after day, several times a day, that adds up, right? And then the last one is just exercise. This is your going to the gym. This is your training. This is your cardio, things like that. Um, these are intentional calories burned, but a lot of people get this confused as far as like a lot of people get so married to the number. Like if you wear like an Apple Watch or like a fitness tracker or a Garmin, I promise you that a little 30-minute workout that you just done according to your Apple Watch said that you burned 1,200 calories. No, you did not. Those things are very inaccurate when it comes to those. They're consistent, but they're inaccurate. So I was one of the people that used to be married to that number when I first started out. If I hit a leg day and I didn't hit that 1,500 calorie mark, I'm like, man, I didn't work as hard as I did the last time. Let me go do something else. And that's not the way it works. But I say all that to say, so if your body spends, let's say 2,500 calories a day, and you eat 2,000, you're quote unquote in a deficit, right? And your body is going to tap into, the stored fat, kind of in a perfect scenario world, right, to help you lose body fat. On the flip side of the coin, if you eat 2,800, you're in a surplus and you're going to store fat. So again, it doesn't always work like this in a very clean cut, simplistic manner, but you guys get the idea. Now, the mistake that most people make thinking that fat loss in itself is always linear, and it's not. I get clients every single week saying, hey, I've stuck to XYZ and my weights went up 2 pounds yesterday, but now it's down one, and it's the next morning it was down another two. Now it's up another one. It's never going to be you start at 200 pounds and to get from 200 to 150, it's going to go down every single day. It's not. It's going to come up. It's going to come down. Fat loss is not linear in any aspect. If it would be a heck of a lot easier on you guys and me as well too. I could just say, okay, the number is going down. Cool deal. Let's keep going. But there's a lot more factors to it than as you guys know. So if you think about this in the form of a bank analogy, right? In a financial budget, if you overspend every weekend, it's going to cancel out the savings that you've made during the week, right? Fat loss works the exact same way. If you eat in a 500 calorie deficit Monday through Friday, and then you have, a 2,500 caloric deficit from Monday to Friday, but then on Saturday and Sunday, you have 3,000 calorie days. Well, you know, there goes your loss for the week, right? You're either right back at maintenance, or now you may be even in a small surplus. So, um, and a lot of people get in this mindset of, man, I've been good all week, you know. Why am I waking up Monday morning and I'm 2 pounds overweight of where I was last week? Well, how's your weekend like? Oh, well, I did X, Y, Z, and we did go out to eat. I had a handful of chips. I ate this, I ate that. I'm like, okay, all this stuff adds up, right? Um, if you overspend on the weekends, even with money or food, that's typically where people mess up. So now, and just because you go into a surplus does not automatically mean that it's a failure, right? There are instances to where a surplus is warranted if it's controlled, right? So if we look at this still, staying in the bank account scenario, it's just like finances. A surplus isn't always bad. More money is always a good thing, right? You need to spend money sometimes in order to invest things that will grow over time, right? The same goes for calories. We want that higher caloric intake if we're doing things like we're building muscle, we're going through a reverse phase, we're trying to fix hormones, or we're trying to fix, your metabolism, things like that. Those are when that surplus is warranted, and it's not a bad thing. But just like that, you wouldn't invest blindly into something that you have no idea about. Your cousin calls you, hey bro, send me $1,000. I had this thing I'm going to invest in. Send it to me. You're probably not going to be like, yeah, man, here. You're going to ask questions. You're not going to just invest blindly, right? It's the same thing with eating food that just doesn't align with your goals, right? If you're constantly getting off track and you're having these random binges or just episodes of not tracking anything at all whatsoever, that debt or that over surplus is going to add up pretty quickly. But if you have a constant surplus that is controlled, such as in like a growth phase, that's when it's warranted, right? Now, the real problem that I wanted to talk to you guys today about is going broke from chronic under eating. This is where a lot of people come into the program at. They're in this less is more mindset, and we have to break that. So here's the flip side of this. What happens when you eat too little for too long? You slow your income down. You reduce your ability to spend. You go into a quote unquote metabolic debt. Your body is going to adapt to survive. Your BMR slows down tremendously. Your NEAT goes down tremendously. Your TEF isn't really going to go down a whole lot, but your exercise will too. So all of these withdrawals are going to start decreasing along the way. And that's why that eat less, move more mentality eventually backfires. You cannot live in that deficit forever. Eventually, your body stops playing along and it catches on to what you're doing. And then that eventually turns into a surplus. If we follow the arrow here, and you're going to gain fat. So, we have less of these. This is going to go up, surplus, gain fat. Um, Again, keeping with the bank analogy, if you maxed out your overdraft or protection, there's nothing left for you to pull from. You have nothing. Just as if you get very low in calories and your cardio is very high, what else are you going to do? You're going to add in more cardio, going to pull out more food? No, you can't. If you're at somebody who's doing cardio 7 days a week, you're eating 800 calories a day. Um, what are you doing? There is no more food that you should pull. There's no more cardio that you can do. You probably could do more, right? You could make yourself get up and do more, but at the end of the day, it's time to go back the other way and start, getting the body back into a more of a balanced approach as far as getting some calories in, and probably increasing well or decreasing some of these. Like the exercise, just to kind of bring things back up to equilibrium as well too. Um, Now, I say all this to say that even though that we're really trying to keep track of what we're doing, you don't have to quote unquote hoard every single calorie, right? You don't need to panic if you have one high calorie day. A lot of you guys have a one free meal a week option in your plan, right? Notice I said option. It's not mandatory. I tell people all the time, hey, if you've ate on your diet very, very well this week and you feel like you deserve the free meal, sure, go ahead. But if Monday, Wednesday, and Thursday you forgot your food at home or you didn't feel like eating, should you have the free meal on Saturday night with your buddies? No, you didn't earn it, right? That's why I say that it's optional. It's kind of up to your discretion at that point. Um, but don't let one high day ruin the whole momentum. You have to look at that average weekly balance. As a good example of this is your steps, right? A lot of you have 10,000 step daily requirements. And, some of you have more, some of you have less. But at the end of that, 7 day span, as long as you get an average of 10,000 across that 7 day span, that's all that matters. It's the same with the food too. That's why that tracking macros is so powerful. It's going to give you, kind of a little bit of an insight into where your calories are actually going. It's just like, pulling up to the ATM, how they used to do it in the old days. You type in or you put in your card and it, gives you the remaining balance, right? It's you checking to see how much you have left, right? That's why if I'm tracking my macros, I put it into either the app or Chronometer as well too, just to see, hey, how much do I have left for the day, essentially. Um, so if you start thinking like um, you're well, when you get into this mindset, start thinking like a fat loss guru, if you want to say that, right? Use your steps plus your training as your fixed expenses, right? You're going to do these regardless. You're going to get your steps in daily. You're going to train. 3 to 5 times a week, right? These are your fixed things, regardless of what's going on in your life. I've talked about non-negotiables before. If you have brushing your teeth as a non-negotiable, putting on deodorant, taking a bath every day, that's a non-negotiable, right? That's something that you do whether you're motivated or not. Once you can shift into getting those steps, getting your workouts, getting your food as a non-negotiable, everything else becomes a hell of a lot easier. Excuse my language, but it really does. Um, and so moving on to the next point, you want to use your food as a deposit tracker. So if you're tracking inside of the app or inside in their chronometer, plug the things in as you do it. So you're going to have pretty much a countdown of what you have left. If you're not tracking in any capacity, or you're not setting to the set meal plan, you might get to 6 or 7 o'clock at night and say, "Damn, I got 1,400 calories left to go," right? And it really just boils down to being able to pace yourself during the day and not letting it catch up to you. And having a plan essentially is always a good idea too. Um, don't eyeball your food, track it, weigh it. It's just like if you don't track your expenses during the month and you go swipe it at Walmart because you want to go buy this TV that's on sale, right? But your card declines. Well, you should have tracked your money a little tighter, right? So you'll know how much that you have left. If not, you're going to go into overdraft, whatever the case may be. It's the same with the food, right? I hope you guys are tracking with using these banking analogies, but um, I say all this to say fat loss isn't about perfection. It's about staying within the budget most of the time. And I've told probably everybody on this call, it's about staying within the lines, right? If you're going on vacation, it's not about staying dead set perfect. It's about, hey, keep us in the road, right? You might swerve to the left lane a little bit, you might swerve to the right lane a little bit, but as long as you're within, as long as we're not going off-roading, going off track tremendously and then having to really work our way back to getting on track, right? That's the main thing. It's not about perfection, but it's about keeping it in the road, essentially. And now let's talk about three budgeting mistakes that just stall fat loss in a very simplistic and basic manner. So, number one is estimating portions too often. Again, this is people who get very comfortable, very what's the word to use? Very relaxed with their plan, right? And that's why I tell you guys, audit yourself weekly. They're eyeballing things. Oh yeah, that little bit of sauce, it's not going to matter, right? Those extra 30 calories, it's not going to matter. Um, it's just like if you spend an extra $10 a day, you're going to end up spending $3,600 a year and have nothing to show for it but a bunch of empty Starbucks cups, right? All those little additions are going to add up big time. Um, a lot of people also treat cardio like a bonus paycheck, I guess is the best way to put that. I worked out, so I earned this, right? No, no, you did not. That cardio is not going to offset that McDouble wood fries and a large sweet tea. It's not going to happen like that. A lot of people, get into that mindset of, hey, I just ate XYZ. I'm going to go burn this stuff off. If you go to Olive Garden and you eat whatever, and it's a 2,500 calorie meal, for those of you who have cardio in your plan, you guys know how long it takes to burn 250 calories. Times that by 10, and that's how much it would take to burn that off, right? Burn it off. And so, again, it's not feasible. That's why that you really have to pay attention and keep tabs again on what you're doing. And then the last one is going to be not adjusting when your body needs a change. So, a calorie budget that worked on 240 pounds is not going to work at somebody who's 180 pounds. If you start a diet at 220 or 240 and you get down to 180, well, that same caloric budget is not going to work. So that's why we have to constantly adjust things, whether that be from food, exercise, NEAT, things like that. Again, I'm going to say this probably 100 more times. It's about auditing yourself. You really have to make sure that you're on top of things because things slip through the cracks more times than not than people honestly realize. Um, and so if we look at the board, now finally I get to show you guys my beautiful drawing. Um, so essentially, what we have been talking about this whole time is our deposits. So if we think about food, now food needs to be thought of in the manner of everything that you eat, everything that you put in your mouth. I don't care if it's a pretzel, it's a bite of your kid's pizza. It's let me grab this piece of candy out of my desk that I've had since Halloween. I'm going to throw it away. Let me eat half of that, right? All this stuff has to be added in here. And if we look at drinks, even me, I got this little um, clean energy thing from the I don't like the gatekeep stuff, but these are from the Dollar Tree. They're like 60 cent in their Rain Energy Sport for 60 cent. And energy drink, if you go to the QT, these are like $3 or something. So, but keep that between us. But like even this has like 10 calories. Should I track this? Yes, I should. I don't give a damn if it's 10 or if it's 100. A few weeks ago, I had bought some from Aldi that I thought were the sugar-free kind. I opened the box up, looked at the back, it said 160 calorie. I'm like, well, I can't drink this because it's not within my allotment. Now, granted, I did adjust some things during the day to where I could, make up for the carbohydrates because I did buy, you know, four of them and I was going to drink them regardless. But, I did adjust my plan, to make up that. So again, everything that you eat, drink has to go in this deposit category. Sauces as well too. Um, if you guys are curious, go in your fridge and grab a bottle of Hidden Valley Ranch and look at what 30 grams is. It's ridiculous. And then go weigh out 30 grams. That's enough for like what, two French fries? It's not a lot, right? So again, all this stuff has to be thrown in there. And then I put a weekend events here just because this is typically a bigger deposit than a lot of people think it is. So I had to throw that one in there. And then again, if we look at the withdrawals, what's pulling the calories out? This is going to be a non-negotiable. But you have to have your BMR. You have to have your heart pumping, your lungs working, you're thinking, you're talking. That's a non-negotiable. You're not going to change your TEF. Your NEAT can change, and your exercise can change. But again, if we can keep the exercise and the NEAT and the non-negotiable categories along with the food, we can keep these, withdrawals pretty much standardized as much as we can. So if we look at it from a very, simplistic drawing here, if we're dead even on our deposits and our withdrawals, it's maintenance, right? If we, have too many deposits, we eat too much food, we eat too many drinks, or we drink too many drinks, we add too much sauces, and our weekend events are going crazy, we're gonna have a surplus and we're gonna gain fat, right? Same with the deficit. You know, if our withdrawals are smaller or bigger than our deposits, if we have enough cardio at play, if we have enough steps at play, if we're using our thermal effective food to our advantage and having to actually have our body process whole foods, again you're going to be in more of a deficit, which is going to burn more more fat going that way. And then again, if you're even, it's a maintenance. So um, really, and one thing that you guys also, again, I said this at the beginning of the call, and it's very important to remember this too. I didn't want to use the word calories in, calories out, because it's not the end all be all. I would probably get rocks thrown at me if I said that into any kind of like macro counting group, because that's not the case. In my opinion, it's energy in, energy out. There's a big difference in between that. But to make it simplistic, that's why I use calories in, calories out. But essentially, again, audit yourself, make sure that your deposits and your withdrawals are just where they need to be. So you're not accidentally going into a surplus and gaining fat and then wondering, hey, why is my plan not working? Well, have you audited yourself? No. Did you count all your sauces? No. All right, let's add all this up, figure out, where we're going wrong, add up what we're not doing here, and let's get that number and go from there. So, hope that made sense to you guys. Like I said, I tried to draw it out first so I didn't have to draw it and y'all see my ugly handwriting on the fly. But Has anybody got any questions about that at all? I hope a lot of that stuff made sense to you guys. Anybody got any questions or anything?
I don't have any questions, but I'll definitely add to like just in terms of like some things that you noted, as far as like especially like salsas and stuff, because that's something that I can very easily add to some of my meals. And like until I started looking at like the calories and stuff, it was crazy to see like how much that stuff can add to it. Which I mean, most of the time I like opt for the lighter sauces and that to kind of like help
Yeah.
um, still squeeze those in. But yeah, no, and I definitely like all the financial terminology that you used.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it just makes more it just makes more sense, I think, to explain it that way. I mean, if you think about if you're eating, if you have 3 meals a day to where you're adding in calories, and as far as like sauces go, and you don't know it, and that's an additional 100 calories a day over the week. That's an additional 700 calories, and if we just added in, let's just say what. Uh, 4 sessions of cardio at what is that 175 or something, whatever it is,
Hmm.
that is going to now be equated because you're now eating that cardio amount that we just added in, and you're eating it in sauces. So like that's
Yeah,
where it becomes important to just make sure, because it does matter. So
yeah, it definitely goes in a lot quicker than what it takes to burn off. Obviously, like you noted on the cardio session.
yeah, I mean, if you eat 2,500 calories over your limit, a 250 calorie cardio session probably takes an average person 20 minutes to do. There's no way on God's green earth I want to be 10 times the that. There's no meal out there that I would say, yeah, I'll go do all
No,
this extra stuff to have this meal. Nope, not me. I'm good. So, but yeah, if nobody else has any additional questions or any comments or anything,
I have one thing
yes.
about it. So how would like a diet break or a refeed kind of like play into helping with all that? Does it just increase your energy to like bring your NEAT back up or what?
Yep, I
Oh,
actually explained that to Jacob the other day. I think Jacob, and you can correct me if I'm wrong. I think Jacob told me on Monday. He was like, "Can you explain the phenomenon of the weight dropping, even though that we added more food last week?" And I was like, "Yep.
yeah,
Essentially, it's more food is going to number one, probably drop a little bit of cortisol just from hey, I have more food, life is getting better, more food, less stress. That's awesome, right?" Um, and number two is going to increase your energy output during the day. It's going to make your gym lifts stronger. It's going to make your, I don't want to say like motivation, but just getting outside and getting steps is going to be easier to do, I guess. So the more food just in an essence just gives you more energy, so you're going to burn more, I guess is the best way to put that. So
yeah.
but
No, that was definitely the case because all during like the mini cut, I kept trying to get down to like 180, and then next thing you know, we had food, and I'm like dropped down to 178, and it was
yeah,
just like, wow.
yep, yep. And it's not magic like a lot of people think. It's just sometimes adding more food is the answer. I mean, just a bit of food can go a long way, even from making somebody feel better as well too.
Yeah,
So, but outside of that, if you guys don't have any more questions, we'll get this thing wrapped up. And hope you guys are enjoying the whiteboard sessions. I think it's better than me just sitting down and talking to y'all. So, um, anyway, if you guys don't have any more questions, we'll roll from there, and I'll see some of you here in a minute with check-in. So I'll talk to you guys soon, and we'll go from there. See ya.